Welcome to the first edition of the Gaming Legacy Podcast, where we sit down with the legendary figures and giants of the casino industry who laid the foundation for what gaming is today. I'm Roger Gross, now the editor-at-large of Global Gaming Business magazine, and our first guest in this podcast series is the great Jack Binion, who first arrived in Vegas with his father Benny in 1947. He eventually ran the Horseshoe Casino there and helped to found the World Series of Poker, the seminal poker tournament that is held every year. Winners included legendary poker figures like Doyle Brunson, Johnny Mouse, and Stu Unger, as well as many others. He later started Horseshoe Gaming, one of the most successful regional casino companies with casinos in Tunica, Mississippi, Bossier City, Louisiana, Council Bluffs, Iowa, and elsewhere. In every market, the Horseshoe Casino was the market leader. He sold the company to Caesars Entertainment in 2002 and continues to advise casinos on how to run a gaming establishment and how to treat customers. In fact, treating customers well is a hallmark of the Binion method. The phrase good food, good drink, and a good gamble has always been associated with a Horseshoe Casino. Even today, all Horseshoe casinos have a Jack Binion Steakhouse. It may not be the $4.99 prime rib special that you found at the downtown property, but the Binion strategy remains strong. We spoke with Jack at his offices in Las Vegas in April of 2025. Welcome to the inaugural edition of the Gaming Legacy Podcast. I'm Roger Gross, most recently the publisher of GGB, and in this podcast we sit down with the legendary figures and giants of the gaming industry to talk about the foundation they laid for the way it is today. We'll talk about how they got started, how they learned everything, and how they worked in the gaming industry without AI, without KYC, and often without computers. And my first guest is certainly a legendary figure in the industry, Jack Binion. Jack has been in the industry since the 1940s, and he's going to tell us why he's looking like this right now. Jack, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Well, okay, here a week ago Sunday, I was skiing in Colorado, and I fell, and I broke my neck. So I messed myself up pretty good here, so we'll see.
Well, I think people have told you to stop skiing at 88 years old. So, but I know you enjoy it, so it's hard to get out of it.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, no question about that. So thanks for joining us, Jack. So let's talk about how you got started when you came to Vegas.
Okay, well, actually my father was in illegal gambling in Dallas.
Right.
And a reform administration came in, and they closed up everything,
right,
and we moved to Vegas. Mm-hmm. And that was in 1947.
Okay. And so you were, 10 years old then?
Yes.
What was Vegas like in those days?
Well, it was only 21,000 people.
Right.
It was so small we only had one high school. Now it's 2.5 million people.
Right.
So
we have a few high schools now.
Grown a lot.
And so you went through the school system here, obviously, when you got here.
Yes, I did.
And how did you start working with your father? Because he owned a couple, or worked with a couple of casinos before he started the Horseshoe.
Actually, I didn't start working with him right away because he got convicted of income tax evasion and he went to jail.
Right.
But I knew the people that owned the Horseshoe,
right,
and there was a guy named Joe W. Brown who had a lot of money. He'd been a gambler in New Orleans.
Okay.
And so and then he had hit oil, so he was really doing well. And then he got sick, and he sold it out to what I call the Fremont Bunch, mm-hmm, which was the owners of the Fremont Hotel. And they bought 3/4 of the Horseshoe, and we had a quarter, and that's how we got started.
Okay, so you started working with your father then. That was what, 19?
Well, actually, yeah, exactly. That was in 1964.
Okay, great. And you were named president that year, right, of the property?
Yeah.
Okay. So how did you build up to that? Obviously, you had to work in the casino before that.
Well, I started off as Dayland Blackjack.
Okay.
And then one thing or another, and with the new regime came in, mm-hmm, I was like a junior executive kind of. I had a series of duties to do, and so that's where I started.
Uh-huh.
And
So,
anyway, and then they got in trouble,
yeah, okay.
and they had to sell out. And they came to us and they said, "Would you like to sell buy us out?" We said yes. So we bought them out.
So it seems like people got in trouble a lot in Vegas. I mean, in those days, there wasn't a big gambling commission in those days. I mean, how did they get in trouble?
It was more when they first came out. They said, "Listen, the only people that know how to run a gambling house are people that have been in illegal gambling."
Right.
So they tolerated it pretty good.
Sure.
And now, if you had too bad a reputation, they didn't tolerate that.
Right,
But most of these guys were,
Sure. Yeah, I've talked to people who came, or at least knew people that came to Vegas from other illegal gambling places like Steubenville, Ohio, or
Yes.
or what's that town outside of Cincinnati in northern Kentucky?
Newport, Kentucky.
Right.
I tell you what. In fact, when I first got here, it was a great time.
Yeah.
Because the country was getting closed up. When I say closed up, they were really putting a lot of heat on illegal gambling.
Right.
So now all these guys would close down and they would come to Las Vegas.
Right.
It would be kind of like saying, okay, the NFL can't, you have to play, you can still be from so-and-so,
Right.
but you have to play all your games in Las Vegas.
Right.
So here's all these basically teams come out, and so everybody was from those days, and it was really, at least for me, it was an exciting time.
Yeah, no question about that. So Benny was a casino visionary in many ways. I mean, he took the biggest bets in town.
Yes.
He also replaced the sawdust with carpet on the floor, and I think he was able to recognize the high rollers and even the regular gambler and reward them for that.
Well, we were downtown,
Right.
And the high rollers pretty much stayed on the strip,
Right.
So we had to do something to attract them downtown. So we gave them a better gamble.
Right.
So that's what happened.
Right. So we're talking about the slogan that he used to use, and I know you used for your whole career, which was good food, good drink, good gamble.
Yes.
And so where did that come from, and how did you?
Well, I don't know who even started that out, but basically, and even today, they some places they still lead with food is kind of a loss leader.
Right.
In fact, almost everything was a loss leader, except for the gambling itself.
Right. But you also gave them good rules. I mean, nowadays.
Oh yeah. No, we were very liberal with it, and so that worked, and it just and I'm going to tell you what, he was a really good operator. Looking back, I mean, he knew he was a kind of ahead of his time almost.
Yeah.
And so I learned a lot from him, obviously.
Yeah, sure.
And we took it on. It was me and my brother, and we came on and did that.
Right. So let's talk about poker. This was before the World Series got started. You had a lot of head-to-head operations there. Some of the big poker players would play head-to-head, and then you had a small tournament with 6 or 8 people, and finally, how did the World Series of Poker evolve? In terms of
what happened? We were going to open a poker room.
Right.
Now poker,
not a big money maker.
Not a big money maker, and it wasn't all that big a draw anymore at that time. But so we said, well, let's do something to kind of promote it, to get jumpstart our poker room.
Right.
And so we tried out the World Series of Poker, and it worked out pretty good. And so we started having a poker tournament every year, which was the World Series.
Right.
And actually, we got down to where we needed the space too much. We would only have the World Series of Poker there, or poker, only during the World Series.
Right.
Not the rest of the time, because we wanted that force footage for slots.
Sure, right. And you had some of the most renowned names in poker there. I mean, when you talk about Johnny Moss and
Yes.
and Doyle Brunson, those kind of people. I mean, those were legends.
Yes.
And did they attract other people because they wanted to play at the same table with
Well,
those guys?
yes and no. More than anything else, one of the nice things, we're going back to what I said about the dealers coming out here and everything.
Right.
Everybody was a Damon Runyon character. And when I say a Damon Runyon character, Damon Runyon wrote up books, stories, kind of like they made a movie, Guys and Dolls.
Right.
He wrote that story.
Okay, right.
So this was like people that were in the gambling business that really kind of marched into a different drummer and were colorful.
Yeah, very, very colorful people. And so, but you mentioned the space. I mean, every year the tournament grew bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, how did you handle that as it got
Well,
bigger?
we crowded down. We gave up some of those slot machines for that period of time. Now it runs a lot longer.
Right.
This last year, I was out there with those guys that run the World Series now. The World Series was $500 million in prize money total.
Right. When you were running it.
No, when they were running it.
Okay.
That's how big it's got.
Most recently, yeah.
No, we never realized.
Yeah.
If I'd have known how big it was going to get, obviously I wouldn't have let it go.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, it certainly is big, and now it's in the new horseshoe in Las Vegas, and what they have, they had 10,000 entrants last year or something like that, and runs for a whole month.
Yeah. Well, they run different tournaments. The big tournament is like 80 some odd hundred people.
Right.
But every one of those tournaments are thousands of people.
Right.
So
Sure.
I don't know how many people they draw, but it's a huge event now.
And they have many bracelets these days.
Yeah.
And you only had a couple in your days,
Right.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you stepped away from the horseshoe in the 90s and started Horseshoe Gaming and established these other casinos.
Yes. Well, I'm going to tell you what. That's when, the Indian Gaming Act came out in 1988.
Right.
So that kind of opened up the country, and instead of just having the Indians, the places started making it legal, like it's self-evident now. So I went back with Mike Gone, by the way, and we looked at a place. We weren't going to be in business partners, but we were friends, and he gave me a ride back, and and I said, this is going to work.
Yeah.
So I came back out, and my father was deceased by then. My mother was very, very conservative.
Right.
Ted was in trouble, my brother.
Right.
The sisters were, they were minor players on the thing anyway. So I said, well, I'm going to start my own company then. And nobody was really interested in doing it. And what I did, I took the rest of the family, when I said the rest of the family, a bunch of nieces and nephews and grandchildren and different ones, and gave them stock in the company, and we started a new company.
Okay. So you used the same philosophy that you used in Vegas. I mean, Horseshoe Gaming was one of the most successful regional companies.
Yes.
I mean, I remember visiting you guys in Tunica one time. You took me to the steakhouse there, and and that was the star of the whole Tunica area, that property.
Right.
MGM had built a casino a few yards down for you. Wasn't nearly as successful as your place.
Every place we went, we were always the number one grocer and best money maker in whatever area we were in.
Yeah, no question. Louisiana, I was there. Another great property in Bossier City. So why do you think you were so successful in these other jurisdictions?
Just that we had a formula that was, and uh, work very hard to make it successful.
Right, right.
Yes.
Well, I know a lot of the guys that used to work for you, and they followed your philosophy as well. I was speaking with Roger Wagner,
Yes.
our mutual friend, a few weeks ago, and he said something like, Jack and I would be like fish out of water in the gaming industry today.
Well, I thought about that, and he's kind of right. Look,
Yeah,
we've been, when I say that, gambling is so much bigger now and everything,
right,
that being the head of a company, okay, like at the Binion,
right,
the guy that's the head of the company, a REIT bought it,
right,
and he doesn't know anything, but he's basically their financial strategist.
right.
And they manage the balance sheet.
Sure.
Their job is not to get into operations.
Right.
Now, me and Roger have been gone almost 20 years.
Right.
So naturally, you can just imagine how much technology has moved and all the different things that happen.
Yeah.
Now, I think if we had time, which you can see we don't,
Right.
we could catch up. But
Yeah.
well, at this point, it's just academic anyway. But he's right that we've been out of the industry a long time now.
Right. And people who have the expertise that you have, aren't valued as much as they used to be.
Yes, yes. Well, like I say, it's all. Everybody's got a different set of jobs.
Right.
The guy that's really most of these places, they're head of the company. They're financial strategists.
Right.
They're not gambling house guys.
Right.
And others are, like in the old days, you prided yourself and worked hard, taking care of the customer, and then it was very personal to you.
Sure. So after you sold Horseshoe to Harrah's or Caesars, you were chairman of Wynn Resorts, which I'd forgotten. But you knew Steve Wynn from back in the old days.
Exactly.
I mean, you competed across the street from this Golden Nugget
Yeah.
and the Horseshoe. How did that come about? And what was your
Well,
relationship
I'm gonna
like
tell
with
you
Steve?
When Macau, when they started having, I said, well, I got to go over there and see if I could get a license
Right.
or anything. And so I talked to Steve about it and everything, and he said, well, let's talk about it later. Finally, he said, listen, that's not a good idea. He says, come on in and join me and
Yeah.
everything. Now, the truth is, I never really did him much good because Steve had a successful operation, a successful way of doing things.
Sure.
And I could see that I was going to be a little bit of a fish out of water. So I stayed 5 months and then I left.
Okay.
But
So what was your relationship like with him? I mean, obviously you
always
competed across the
good.
street.
We had,
Yeah.
he loved my dad.
Yeah.
And so we always had a good, to this day,
Yeah.
we have a good relationship with
Right.
Steve. And I got to say this about Steve. Steve was the sharpest guy ever come to town.
Yeah, I worked for him, so I
Huh?
I saw that. I worked for him for a while as a dealer back in Atlantic City,
Yeah.
and he was a really sharp operator for sure.
Right, yeah.
And he valued his employees the same way you did. I mean,
Yes.
you always kept your employees close. I remember when we went to dinner in Tunica, there was a waiter we had, and he like spilled a drink or something, and you don't worry about it,
Oh, really? I don't really remember.
But you always treated your employees special, which I think
Right.
Wynn did as well. I mean,
Right.
is that a key that a lot of the employees these days don't really feel that from the corporations that own them?
Look, these are public. At least in my mind, the gambling business was special.
Right.
It's the king of businesses.
Right.
And everything. So you had a lot of pride in it, and everybody had, like I say, everybody was marching to a different drummer, and so you had a whole sub-society that was in the business.
Right.
Now it's changed to the point it's so big worldwide. Let's face it. that it's just, in effect, another business.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I remember going to the gaming conventions, World Gaming Congress and
Right,
G2E. I used to go to those early ones. I knew everybody there. Now I go to something.
No,
I don't know anybody.
it's
right?
totally different.
Right, it is. So let's talk about some of the people that you worked with downtown that were some of your competitors. Let's start with Jackie Gaughan. Jackie owned a lot of property down there.
Jackie was from Omaha,
Right.
and me and him were great friends.
Yeah.
Now, when I say that, Jackie was quite a bit older than obviously
Right,
than me,
sure.
and so he was almost kind of like a mentor to me in the other way
Right.
that he always was very nice. And Jackie had a great personality. In fact,
Right.
I'm gonna tell you what, the Gawns are just the greatest family.
Sure, right.
And Mike's the best operator
Right.
now.
Yeah.
He is the best operator.
Well, even today, I think he operates South Point much like you would have done.
Yes,
if you
exactly.
were there. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a winning formula.
Yeah.
And and he's private, so he can do things
Right.
that public companies, every quarter,
Right.
they have to report those earnings, and they're under constant pressure to perform from quarter to quarter.
Right.
Where sometimes you might say, well, this is going to take some time to make this thing work, or maybe it won't work, but we'll have to see. They can't do that now.
Right. So, is there any advice you could give some of the operators now that like we've seen some stories in the past few weeks that it's so expensive in Las Vegas to go eat. For dining in Vegas is expensive. The shows are ridiculously expensive. That kind of thing. I mean, what advice would you give them to really make their customers more loyal to them?
Well, everybody's got a business plan. And their business plan is whatever it is, and obviously a lot of times it's successful,
Right.
or it's not successful. But now, like, they're still okay. Like we're talking about the South Point,
Right.
and Mike still uses his food as a lost leader,
Right.
and everything. And he also has an equestrian,
Right.
a couple of West Coast, and he's done a great job. In fact, he even has a 64 lane bowling alley
Right, yeah.
that's only used for tournaments from people from out of town.
Yeah.
So he has that all running, and you don't even know it's there.
Right.
And but
It keeps his hotel full when that comes to
keeps
town.
this all going.
Right.
So that's so like I say, you do things that you think is going to drive your business, and it's just let's face it, Vegas has just become it's just a phenomenon.
Yeah.
It's just a phenomenon
Yeah.
that the entertainment and when I say musical and all that kind of entertainment and everything
Right.
is just a different situation.
Right. What do you think when you look at Vegas today, especially with the sports teams now coming in? It's the sports, entertainment, and gambling capital of the world.
Yes, it is.
Like when you got here, there were 21,000 people.
Yes, yes, exactly. In fact, Reno was bigger than Las Vegas when I
Right.
was
Sure.
there.
Yep.
Yeah. So, it shows that. But there's a lot of different management goals and a lot of different management philosophies how to run these places.
Right.
But those upper end places, they number one, let's face it, these things have 4,000 rooms.
Right.
Now, when you look at the double occupancy, they're running about 8,000 people in there. Well, maybe let's say
Right.
7,000 people in there, and then all the people taking care of them. It's a city. There's 10,000 people in over 12,000
Right.
people in one of those buildings.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a huge operation.
Right. So it's really almost impossible to run it the way you did. I mean, you used to know all the players by name and
Yes.
and know your head exactly how much action they gave you.
But you know what? To the credit, a lot of these places still do the same thing, and they still have good customers. The that kind of customer has just gotten. It's just a different segment of the business that people don't even talk about anymore. Because everything is, they're talking about the entertainment and all that kind of stuff. But Vegas overall does really a great job.
Yeah. And do you think these regional casinos could do anything to really emulate the way you ran a casino? I mean, they're much smaller markets. They have a much smaller pool of customers. Could they do what you did in terms of knowing your customer almost on a first name basis?
Yes. Although here's the thing: most of those smaller places are owned by these bigger places out here.
That's true, right?
So, but yes. Yeah, they run them. And here's another thing that's awful strong. You own a place here, and you own a place, a series of places in North Carolina, whatever. They cross-market them. So the guy, he wants to go to Vegas every once, and everything.
Right.
And he builds up all of his different credits or whatever, so he can come to Vegas.
Right.
So that makes him more loyal to the smaller place back there.
Sure.
And so when he comes out here, he can enjoy himself. So basically, you get to paddle him twice. You got him back home, and you get him coming out here.
Right. So what do you think about all the technology that's come out? Now they're using AI and those kind of things. Would you have liked to have that when you were running a place?
Yeah, well, the more information you can get, the better off you are.
Yeah.
And that's just part of it.
Yeah.
I think back, let's take the development of slot machines. Mm-hmm. Slot machines, when I started out, were all mechanical.
Right.
And they only had 8,000 combinations.
Right.
20 times 20 times 20 symbols on it. So you couldn't give out more than 8,000 coins at a time, because that was it was gone. Right. So now, as they got bigger and had more variety and could do more things, now the machines, in a way, they're not slot machines anymore. Right. They're lottery machines.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
In other words, they pay huge jackpots, and that's what attracts the person to try to hit those bigger jackpots, 100,000, and whatever it is.
Right.
And so I think that just shows the natural involvement, not only of gambling, but all businesses.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you were, as we mentioned before, you had the best rules at the Horseshoe. You had a slot percentage that was up in the high 90s.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I've seen the data. The slot hold has gone up and up and up. We see 6-5 blackjack and 000 roulette, and
I'm surprised they're able to get away with some of that.
Yeah.
But like the slot machines, because they have such big jackpots,
right,
they're able to make the machines tighter.
Right.
And it worked.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible. So one last question. When you look back on your life and your experience, how much fun did you have?
A lot. A lot. Yeah, in other words, it was not only a business; it was a lifestyle.
Right.
And your business and your pleasure, your social life was one and the same.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of the people you met along the way were just incredible people.
Yes. Yes. Well, like I say, and one nice thing about the gambling business, it makes you very tolerant of people and their desires, what they want, and everything. So you understand people. I tell you what, those old gamblers, when I first got in, they were great psychologists.
Yeah.
And they really understood. Most of them were players themselves.
Right.
And they had so much understanding of the customer that there was just so much they could do. like you say, my father understood it, and a lot of those old guys that I would hang out around with, they had that knowledge too. And looking back, it was I was able to learn from them, and we went from there.
Sure, great. Well, Jack, we're honored to have you on the first Gaming Legacy podcast. It's been a great conversation with you, and I hope you get your neck better and you can go skiing one more time.
Well, I do too. Good, Roger.
Great.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming by.
Absolutely. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed this edition of the Gaming Legacy podcast, produced in association with Clarion Gaming. Special thanks to our videographer, Billy Walker. Don't miss a single episode of the Gaming Legacy podcast, available on Amazon, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Please leave a review at any of these sites to help us get a wider audience. And to learn more about the gaming business, visit ggbmagazine.com and igamingbusiness.com. So we'll see you next time on the Gaming Legacy podcast.